Find out. I've got my snowball, but I think we have to take this off. Is that right, Isaac? Just take the snowball off?
Well, let me see what happens first, okay?
Yeah. But it's a problem. Okay.
Okay, let's go here.
Oh, we've got to upload change the...
Unlisted for now. Done.
Yeah. And change the picture.
Change to where? This one?
Yeah.
Wait. Oh. Just wait. Stop. Now. No, you just need the first name because you've already got the name up the top. There.
That says you.
There.
Get more. Oh, I got water.
Oh, perfect. At least that works better, doesn't it?
Yeah.
That works better.
I like that
changing
white on you. That white color with your white.
I'm dying, yeah, but I've just leaned back, that's all. Who's
Chris,
this to?
Chris. Control V.
Control V.
Test.
Can
No,
I
just-
say, I'll
That's
tell him
all.
when to do it. Yeah.
Don't need to do anything else. Leave it alone.
Very good. Very good. We're on our way. Now I've got your, we've got Michael McKnight next week, hopefully. I've got your same bio from the last time. But we really wanted to talk about shame and anger. Which are the big
great.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
They're the big ones. Yeah. Because
Yeah.
Lisa was saying her mother, dyslexic, it lives with you forever, that shame from early on. And I agree.
Yeah. Well, I guess I was fortunate to be diagnosed in 1982 where a lot of people hadn't. But it didn't matter because I didn't get any extra help besides the regular tutoring that my mom bought a private tutor for, So it might as well have not been diagnosed. Now, when in high school, I did get retested in high school to get the extra accommodations of extra test time, leaving the classroom to go to the resource room, stuff like that. That wasn't until high school. Who knows, know? But my LD teacher didn't even help me hardly, even there. So, I might as well have not gotten, like I said, diagnosed.
Yeah. So at least you were diagnosed in school.
I guess, yeah. But, it's for the help that you
Yes.
get, and I didn't get any extra help.
Yeah.
So
it wasn't worth it.
High school, but she wasn't even much of a help. Actually, there was another LD student that sat next to me in that class, the LD class, and he helped. But he was also logical, mathematical smart, and he could do math too. So that was very helpful, which I could not do either because I have dyscalculia.
That's
So
Tricia.
that was good. I had him.
Can we do it? We've got to do a test run first. Lisa, can you start to talk, please? Isaac, when
Yes,
you're ready.
hello. Hello, everyone. How's everybody doing today? We're doing a sound check. I hope I'm not echoing. All is good. It's sunny out. It's kind of hot. How's that sound?
How does that sound, Isaac? I've got a blur in the back on my background. Can you see that, or is that just me?
I can. Yeah, I can see it. It's on. It's to the left of you.
Give me 1 second.
Oh, where'd you go?
Alright, I'll talk to you later. And
That's better. That's better.
Yeah, but you're way off to the side now.
Yes.
Okay.
As soon as I do that, that's better.
Don't move too much.
Yeah, when you leaned in last week, I could hear an echo.
So
Can you hear an echo today? Because I've got the snowball. I don't know if that's good or
You
bad.
shouldn't have to.
What's that, Lisa?
1
Just a
second
minute.
wide.
Go up a bit. Go up. Because I saw in this, there was another name. What's down further? There, that website's got to go. It's not, the whole thing's got to go. Not always depression's got to go.
Do we have another website? Do we have any other websites to type in?
Do we have your website to type in, or can we do it later?
No, you want to do it now.
Tricia, have you got your website there?
Yeah.
Do you want to send it to...
www.
No, don't.
Dot.
What's the
Hello?
website's name?
Albert Egbert.
myelbert.com.
My.
MY. Elbert, ELB.
We've got
Got
it. Yeah, we got it. Perfect. I just noticed that. Perfect. Thank you. We might have left that on last week's.
Yeah, you did. Oh well. It's harder to use.
Oh, this helped you, Lois. Some people said that from the event, whatever, what's that name?
Eventbrite.
Yes, Eventbrite, that they didn't have a link to this. So I had to send it to them separate. So you might want to look at that. Eventbrite gave me troubles last week doing the same thing.
Really?
Yes, that got a hold of me and said that they didn't have the link from Eventbrite.
Well, that's because there is no link for Eventbrite because this is live now. The only time it spawns a link is when you go live. You can't really have unless you're talking about the link itself to like the Eventbrite
to
website.
the tickets. What is it? Was it the link to the tickets, or was it the link to the Eventbrite?
What is that?
I'm assuming if it said to the tickets, they would have known it was going to come through the ticket. But they said they didn't have the link, is what they told me.
Well, I'm assuming they're talking about this link, which doesn't create until you actually start it. So there's no possible way you can do that.
There it is. And so that's fine.
I gotcha.
Yeah.
I gotcha.
Yeah, and I've sent it now via a direct email to anyone who's registered.
Yeah. Yeah, I should have just said that. That's right.
Now, is this all right for me, Chris? Because we've had problems with me with the snowball, without snowball.
You're fine.
God, good. Okay.
Just don't move too much.
Don't move too much. I'm on the edge. All right. Put that there. And I take notes as we talk, Tricia, because it helps me focus.
Understand.
Hey, welcome. This is When Learning is Trauma. It's nearly 4 o'clock.
Yeah, you got a few.
But it's okay. I think we can start. Welcome, Lisa. Great to have you back. Tell us about you while we start. Can you tell? What do you do? I've lost you. I've got no sound. Isaac, I've lost Tricia. Lisa.
Nope, I'm here. I'm here. Sorry. That was my fault. I was talking to my son that just came home from school. So start again, Lois.
Welcome, Lisa. Thank you for joining us again for When Learning is Trauma. Tell us what you do, Lisa, before we introduce Tricia.
I'm a nurse in an inpatient detox center, and I work with a lot of the different dyslexia advocacy groups, and I do this on Monday afternoon with Lois. So that's me in a nutshell.
And Tricia, welcome back. We had you February, March, or April, May. I forget which one.
March.
It was March.
Yeah.
That's right, it was too. That's where I found you. And Tricia has interests focus on alternative and holistic education, such as explicit instruction, neurodiversity, literacy tutoring, learning difference, and positive mindset and learning environments. She presents an alternative perspective, as she definitely has a divergent mind. Tricia feels like a wise and revolutionary educator who listens to the child by following their needs. She believes in Maria Montessori. I'm struggling with speech today.
Okay.
Maria Montessori's observations of trusting the universe along with the child. If we love and trust our children, this becomes their inner thoughts, ideals, feeling, intent, dreams, and purpose. Thank you for joining us again, Tricia. And today we're here talking about shame and anger. But welcome first up.
Thank you for having me.
Tell us about how you came to realise the power of shame and anger.
Okay. So, when I was working on my master's as a reading specialist, so ironic, right? Somebody with dyslexia wanting to be a reading specialist. God had his inner purpose for that, and I would have only laughed if you would have told me that. But so I went and I was going through the reading specialist certification, and I noticed that I was actually starting to pick up my fluency and start to comprehend better. So I only could attribute to the amount of this being early in our 2000s, the year 2000. So that I thought they were just bombarding us with graphic organized. And prior to that, I was very interested in using webs, but I just hadn't been exposed to how to use them properly and everything else. And this were so many more, and they're more graphic, more colorful. So, it makes sense that retrained my brain to learn, because I've learned all about the brain and dyslexia, and knowing that my gift is strong evaluative skills, and that's literally my logic, is using evaluation. And that is looking at color, shape, size, dimension of everything I see and finding patterns in it, as well as what people don't think about, chant, rhyme, meter, and pattern also. So anyway, with that being said, with my strong evaluative skills, it retrained my brain to learn, and I could take that whole picture that I've always been good at and then have this tool to detail it and break it down so much to bring it back to the whole, which I already knew. Talking about being whole part whole, the mind map is the way to go with that. So I was getting excited. It was always a struggle, even up until then, that this empowered me by learning the skill of mind maps. But I was like, why am I still not proud of myself? Why am I still insecure? Why am I still having these problems? I got what I've always wanted. So I was going through a deep, dark night of the soul type moment coinciding with this time. And I said, first word that came up to me is abandonment. And this is something a so early 40s person will do is evaluate their life. And so I was like, abandonment? What does that mean? I don't know what that means. My parents are wonderful. So what I boiled down to, I feel like it was also with dyslexia, we care immensely for people, animals, and nature, and that we have a lot of shame. We're very people pleasing. So I looked up to teachers as role models. I mean, not only just teachers, just people in authority in general. And they let me down, They, by being so angry with me. They were literally angry with me. Now I realize that I was hurting their ego at this time. But it's not their fault. They didn't know how to teach people with dyslexia in the 80s. They did not know. But what it was hurting their ego. And so I had teachers yell at me. I was right next to their desk. Kids picked up on this. They were awful to me. I had one child pull out my chair right when I was about to sit down. Like, they were picking up on that energy of that teacher being so angry with me and frustrated with me. And I'm not saying it was every teacher, because it wasn't. There's a few that stick out to my mind. But even then, they weren't, educated back then on how to help people with dyslexia. So anyway, the abandonment came the word strength. I was like, okay. I've always felt like I could be stronger and sticking up for myself. It didn't make too much sense. And then the word anger came up. Remember what I said, people with dyslexia, we care so much about people, animals, and nature. I never would be an angry person. I'm not angry. I don't get angry. Well, I didn't get angry, but I had regressive anger that I would hold inside myself, and that turned to shame. So when it came up to being anger and strength, I was contemplating and thinking about and praying for an answer. What does this mean? What it ends up is I needed more strength to look at this anger that I had suppressed so long inside of me.
Yeah.
So I literally had to go back to those, put myself back into those moments, you know, where I must have held in the anger in the classroom, and then I through that anger, then it came to time to look at the shame. That was the hardest part. Shame includes a lot of shutdown, a lot of introvertedness, a lot of things of, I'm very adventurous. You know, people with dyslexia were very adventurous, but then our environment created us to not be so. So where it wasn't easy to look at the shame and then venture out and looking at that. But I'm so much more confident because I have empathy now. That was the third word that came up, was empathy. And it wasn't, of course, leading to empathy towards others. It was leading towards myself.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
So a lot of work I had done on this anger and shame. And then it came to much deeper into hatred and grief. Because as an adult, if that anger and shame isn't looked at, it can go into those. And what I found out with hatred, you need compassion. I'm not saying it right. Courage. And for hatred, you need compassion. So as I look at the hatred that I've worked out, and then the grief, I'm so much a happier person. I'm so much at peace. People don't trigger that. I don't feel insecure. Like, I'll still do my dyslexic characteristics, and some of the executive functioning things that I have, along with having slow speed processing. I still have those things come out, but when people say, "What'd you say?" again, or something like that, it doesn't trigger me. It doesn't make me feel bad about myself anymore. Because at some point, I also realized all of that had to happen in my life to get me where I am today. Yeah. If I didn't have it, I wouldn't be able to help the students the way that I need to, which I feel is part of my larger purpose in this whole thing. So am I glad that all happened, that the teachers were awful to me, that, sibling, he wasn't so nice. So, and then all of the learning struggles itself, yes, I'm very happy it happened because it helped me to grow. I couldn't have grown otherwise, there's no doubt. But I do feel like anger and shame needs to be addressed. So I would like to talk about what was on my outline, but if you have any questions, let me know.
Well, I wanted to go back. Lisa was talking about her mother having the same. Having this, as an adult, still feeling the anger and the shame.
Yeah, and even being a successful artist. She was a professional artist, a graphic designer. And back in those days, she was really breaking into a man's world. A lot of the people in charge were men, and they looked at her like, who's this woman trying to break into this? So to be a strong person, to succeed in that atmosphere is amazing. But she still, to this day, I think she'll be 80 in January, has the shame surrounding the fact that she was a poor reader. She also was a middle child, and her sister, who was older than her, did well in school. And you can imagine the issues with that. So still to this day, being a successful, strong woman, she has shame.
Yeah.
Totally identify with her. My brother is a neurosurgeon. But I'm proud of her, what she did in breaking through in a man's type of occupation. And that still didn't justify her with what she needed to look at the anger and shame. So even at her age, I don't think it would hurt her to try yoga. So, I don't think that would hurt her at all. And you know what? Tai Chi is a slow movement meditation. So it's that contemplation and that thinking about your body and breath gets you in the present moment. And when you're in the present moment, then if she's not going to have thoughts of the past and her learning difference. nor in the future, which she can innovate and create and build an entrepreneur. She's going to get her in that center line of in that moment. And so if she happens to want to work on it still, I mean, Tai Chi and Qigong, I think I'm saying it right, they get her again in that present moment of body and breath that she needs. And then there's regular meditations. The mountain meditation is one of my favorites of all times, and the 61 points of light meditation. And then, I'm going to say prayer, because I ask God, take this anger from me and please replace it with strength. And he, as in my belief that he can give us that, and he had a lot to do with it. So prayer, I call it PYAM, PYAM, prayer, yoga, affirmations. So I know she can have you guys tell her, all of her family, that she's a great person, that she's a wonderful mother. But she herself, the affirmations that she needs to come with, maybe needs to come for herself. And because her body and her mind, her spirit will tell her what she needs most. Mine was, at first, I am smart, I can do this, I am loved. I had that one forever. But then my mind and my body, everything knew I didn't need that one anymore. And it's no fear, only love. But her setting her own affirmations, and y'all, if you can help affirm those to her, that still helps. I don't care how old you are, as long as you're living. And then the last one is, the meditation that I was talking about. So, she's got to be willing to look at it, though. If you're not willing, then it's not going to work. I think
I think the trick is to try to, and one of the reasons we do all this is to stop all this before it happens, so that these children don't have to wait until they're 80 to try to figure out how worthy they are.
Yes,
that's right. That's a little bit of my anger coming out there in a respectful type of way.
I think you're right, Lisa, because I think of not my son so much, but my first student, who was 13 when he came to me. And he's 6 foot at the time, and his shoulders were rounded, he was hunched. He was at the time, I think, flat out even looking at me, let alone wanting to attend a lesson. And the thought process was, no one else has been able to do it. Why does she think she can? She doesn't know how bad I am or how tough I'm going to be to teach. She doesn't know that. No one's been able to do it. So why will she make a difference?
Yeah. My son mentioned that when we interviewed him, and he used the word hopeless.
Yes.
That's why I think dyslexic teachers like myself are so important, because we can connect with them and understand what it is like for them. Yeah. And I do tell them, I understand. I've been there. I've done that. So let me tell y'all what I do. So when I got more Orton Gillingham certification, I was your everyday tutor, where I was, the parent was watching, and I had 30 minutes to make sure they get their money's worth and everything. I keep on tutoring, and, literacy was my number one goal. Can they read, write, and speak well? Yeah. And I started to feel a little guilty about that. Like, I don't feel like I was meeting their whole needs. I'm a Montessorian also. So why would that matter? If I'm in the classroom being a Montessori teacher versus being a tutor, why can't I stop and meet those needs? So I've developed my program, my Elbert, to go along to look at and be sensitive to the trauma that could be occurring or creating or what they're going through already with anger and shame. I have most of my students that are 7 and above that already have on my checklist that I give out anger marked. Now, if anger's working for them, they'll stay in anger. But if not, or if they're not in a safe place for their anger, they'll go to shame. Shame is much harder to address. It's that shutdown. It's that insensitivity, the wanting to not feel what they're learning, not have feeling or emotion related to their learning, where that's the number one thing, is having feeling, and that leads to your motivation for learning. So that insensitivity is shut down. So, so I have never had a checklist not marked, and I've done it on 65 kids. So, so I've added that to my program. Another thing I've added is a gifts and strengths checklist.
Yeah.
Just because that can never be lost, that we can't take those strengths to help in the weaker areas.
Yeah.
We know where their strength's going to be. It's going to be in visual spatial reasoning. And the lower ones are going to be verbal and linguistic. But to have I have the learning menu along with it to say, okay, let's take this to try to help this area. And the last thing I include that a lot of people don't think about is the characteristics. I have a checklist for it and the frequency of those. Meaning that, you know, what's happening is we all read words the same. We process the first part first,
then the last,
middle part last, and the third part second.
Yeah.
So what's happened is our brain is like, I didn't process what's there, so let me substitute it with this one. This one might work. Or let me add a letter there. Let me repeat a letter. Or they're just going to omit it altogether. So I don't think people are looking at which characteristics they are exact of those, nor you have to look separately at the transposals and reversals, because those are more of the visual process. Where I found that it is, for me, 60-60, visual and auditory processing. So, and then the frequency makes a big difference of how often they do it. So, with that being said, I take all of those evaluations, the gifts and strengths, the anger and shame, which I don't really call it that, but it's an easy way to say, I know what I'm working with here. And then the learning characteristics, right? And then my classes I wanted to talk about those because Lois and I first got in contact with each other when we came to poetry. That's just one of the classes. That's actually one of my enrichment classes. And poetry that's not one I wanted to talk about. I didn't want to talk about it because it's 6th on my list. But poetry is my favorite thing because I did not write. I was not a writer at all. I would shake every time I'd go to write. It was triggering the trauma of shame inside of me. And then I would just shut down. But poetry brought it out. I started off with free verse poetry. Yeah. Because it didn't have any set rhyme, meter, and pattern. I was able to create my own. And then I can look inside it now and see, oh, look, there's a rhyme. There's a rhyming verse. Yeah. And I didn't even mean to do that. Yeah. So it comes out, when it's free verse, it comes out very natural. Yeah. And then you can develop those, whatever you see within those free verse writings that you could develop more. That's related to traditional poetry. So,
we have a question from Chris, and he says, what advice do you have for parents that have children that feel ashamed because of their struggles in and out of school?
Okay. So I think the word shame is an emotion, and everything related to that emotion is a feeling. So sad, alone, loss, all of those are perfect descriptions of how you may feel when you are ashamed. But I think when he's starting to when you see him physically start to shut down, that goes into hypoactivity and start to get rather lethargic or slow in his processing, I'd ask him, how are you feeling? And he'll say sad. Then you say, hey, sweetie, that's what we've talked about, is when you're feeling sad, you're feeling the emotion of shame. So what made you feel to start to shut down? And then he'll totally tell you, well, I went to go write this. So then think about what he's being asked to write. Is it too difficult for him? Does it create too many boundaries and try to put him inside the box where, for instance, free verse poetry lets you go and explore? So again, he would hopefully be very familiar of that word shame, so he knows for the rest of his life he can have empathy for himself because you've talked to him. When you're feeling shame, think about empathy. That's caring for yourself. And how can you go care for yourself? Well, when you start to feel shut down, why don't you do the yoga movements that we do? Crossing the midline. Think about the ones that take you over the body. He wants you to go do that. Maybe he won't do that. Give him what's your affirmation? Mine was, I am smart, I can do this, I'm loved. Take him through those, and you're not going to be able to take his shame for him, but you can give him those tools from now for a long time. I would Google some other things.
That's a good suggestion. Google other things of dealing with shame, particularly as an adult. Yes. I mean, there's so much information available. We've got to use it. That's a good one. Google it.
That's right.
Google shame. Yes. Chris, does that answer your question? He might answer or might not.
Oh, yeah.
You've said so much in all of that. But you're right. It's an emotion, isn't it? So how are you feeling? And how does it impact your body? And how does it impact the brain? And you're starting to give words to what they're actually physically doing, not just letting it go.
That's right. It's hypoactivity and hyposensitivity.
Yeah.
So
and hypo means less than, lower than.
They might be yes, you feel less than. That's what I was going to bring up, the point of, I feel like I was naturally kind of extroverted, but it forced me to be introverted, and that was part of the shame, where I'm seeing my extrovertedness come out more and more. I mean, I'm speaking to you guys, and I'm actually speaking well. I'm not stumbling over my words. I'm not having problems with word recall. That's all because I've worked out the shame.
Yeah.
So really, I come into the being who I actually am. am very extrovert. I want to talk to people. I want to connect with people.
I wish there was a way in school to have a program where not only are you educating the children in what they need to know academically, but also to educate not only the kids, but the parents and the teachers to understand all of this. As a parent, I didn't understand that I was uncomfortable when somebody else was angry. And this goes back to Hilary Jacobs Hendel's book, It's Not Always Depression. And she talks a lot about the things that you're saying, Tricia, as well.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize that I was, as a parent, uncomfortable with anger. So when someone else was angry, I was uncomfortable with that. And a lot of these kids, they are walking around angry, sad, fearful, and they have no safe person to work this through.
Yes.
They need people to understand where the anger, fear, sadness is coming from, and then have a safe person to work it out with. But the teachers don't understand what's going on. And as you mentioned, maybe their egos are getting involved, and they're putting up defenses, and a lot of the educators just don't really understand these kids, and either do the parents. So the kids wind up stuffing all of these core emotions down, and it's coming out in this anxiety and shame and all this other bodily feelings. I just think that we need a more comprehensive program to understand this, so kids have a safe place.
I agree. And we've got a question from Rona. What is your advice for dealing with anger and resentment around learning trauma?
Okay, so go to my website. You can find me, but it's tcooktutoring@gmail.com. I'll send you the checklist, and my checklist goes exact through what you're feeling when you're feeling angry in your learning. A lot of them is, are you being aggressive? Are you feeling frustrated? Are you breaking up pencils? Are you tearing up paper? So it's more of a physical activity type. Are you
physical response?
You're feeling shame. It's more physical. That's right.
Yeah.
When you have anger, it's more physical. On the opposite end, if you're feeling shame, the shame is, again, like I said, the shutdown, the ruminating negative thoughts as you're learning. So please get a hold of me. I will send it to you. But what I would do is, again, the Piyam that I was talking, the prayer, yoga, affirmations, and meditation. I would look up books, on anger and shame. Not only that, I would look up on empathy and strength. How can you gain empathy and strength? If you're a Christian, I'd say mercy and grace at that point. Then once you've worked that out, again, you could go to the hatred and then to the grief. And there's lots that you can find on hatred and grief of books. I love Scribe, Scribe. It reads the books out to me. So you can really get any book in there, not too high of a cost. So I get books read to me all the time. Podcasts like this one, look at podcasts on those emotions. What I would do.
I'm going to give a plug for something that's coming up. Michael McCarty is talking next week about a similar thing. In October, we're talking to Dr. Mary Helen Immordino Yang, who is a brain scientist, and talking about emotions and learning. Which is, she writes academic papers, which I've read, which are really worth getting hold of and available on Google. Type a name in, poof, pops up. Astounding. Anyway.
I would also get to know your strengths. A lot of people, like I said, real imaginative. A lot of the creative is the other side of the brain. There are a lot of the imaginative. So if you're imaginative, think about what you're envisioning. If you're envisioning it, go create it. A lot of it has to do with, again, caring for people, animals, nature. Go out in service of others. Go to an animal shelter. Go work with children with similar, problems in school. So think about those as gifts, and also that you are wonderfully made, purposely made. That I feel like people with dyslexia have a strong will, and that will and drive and motivation, not everybody has. So I've heard where NASA does hire people with dyslexia because of that strong motivation. They're just not going to give up. So I would really think about, again, getting a hold of me, and also has the strengths that you can look at, and I'll tell you, what they are.
And your links are in our description at the end, so that's easy to find you.
That's
so,
right.
Lisa.
I have another question.
Mm-hmm.
So how do we help the children who have to go through these tests? So they're not, maybe reading well or reading on grade level, and then they go for the psychological testing. And some of these kids do this often. And a lot of the kids feel shame and embarrassment, and they're feeling like something's wrong with them just from the testing. How do we help explain it to parents, to explain it to the kids, so they don't have to feel shame that there's something wrong with them?
Yeah. So the testing anxiousness. Well, we know what the testing is, looking at the standard brain and the atypical minds. We're not atypical, so let's put that aside. Those haven't changed yet. Those might change in the future. But putting that aside, again, if you're having test anxiety, it's because of most likely shame, or the anger that created the shame. So if they're feeling that, they could go in right before a test. I would get a lot of sleep that night before. I would eat a banana, eat something really healthy, not too light, not too heavy. I would clear your mind, do some meditation before you leave that day. Just a 5-minute quick one maybe. And I would go through them envisioning what it looks like taking the test. And then you said it's about how you're feeling first. If they're starting to feel their heart race, that's usually the anger trigger. They're feeling their heart race, or breathing heavy, or you can't feel sweaty palms. But if you feel the sweaty palms, the neck starts to get stiff, that's more shame. That they could start some breathing exercise that y'all had practiced when you envisioned what would happen if you felt those. And a good one they could do is this. Go through the fingers, breathing in and out each finger. And then say the affirmations. I'm smart, I can do this, I'm loved, let's say that one. And then get on with the test. but I would not try to push through the test without getting calm first. Because calm is key for equanimity and balance and all those things you need naturally there and keep you feeling peaceful and alert and aware. And so another one they could do is, breathing in and out like this. But I would not continue on because it's going to get worse and worse and worse. But they have to practice these.
But what would you say to the parents to tell the children when they have to go for the psychological testing that a lot of their friends don't have to do? So in other words, and so those are great. That sounded more like for when they're taking tests in school, which is terrific advice. But how about when they're getting called into the school psychologist office to be evaluated? How do you help parents help the children not feel so unusual, is what I'm asking.
So empowerment and embracing your differences, so that not everybody has to go to the psychometrist or psychologist or neuropsychologist. I don't know who they're going to be seeing that day. Not everybody does, but let's embrace the difference in the fact that you may have a learning difference. Now I call it learning difference.
I do too.
Now then again, I'll call it neurodifference. It's an umbrella for it all. It's just a nicer way to saying it.
Yeah.
So I just like to say it like that. You may have a learning difference, but what have we talked about with learning differences? There are going to be things that you can do that others can't, and that your strengths are blah 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 with matching with blah, blah, all the things that that my gift and strengths checklist can say to them. And when you get out of there, I want you to know I'm going to be proud of you, no matter if you you feel like you didn't do well or you did think it well. I'm proud of you no matter how it went in there. Because they want to be reassured, because most of the time they just want to please the adult, you know?
Yeah.
So I just prepare them by encouraging them and learning about how wonderful strengths we from our differences.
I'm thinking about my sons and going through school, and when I think about my second one in particular, he says I wasn't good at anything in third grade. So encourage children to realise that life isn't a race. And you're not going to be at the top. You might not, and that's not so important. So when do we want to... we want kids to feel strengths all the way through, which is important. But when do we want them to really excel in school or do better? And it's towards the end.
I found again, we do better in most things that are an application.
Yes.
So that thing I was saying with the adult that may feel it, anger and shame to go out and give service by going to the animal clinic, the students can do that too, and they're taking their strength to go work at it, and they're getting empowered by it. But not only do we have a strength for caring for people and being more sensitive towards others, we're constantly evaluating what does their face look like? Are they look sad at me right now? What is their voice sounding like? So when they go and they leave that place, people are like, thank you for coming. Thank you for serving today. So they're in service to others. They're taking their strength and in service of, and that's empowering them daily.
Mm. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
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 So you give from where you didn't feel before, that you're just feeling bad about yourself. You're giving back to others. It's giving you twofold.
And as you talk about this, I think what I'm seeing a lot on Facebook is maybe we should think about less of grades and think more about sitting with the child who's isolated. So it's not only dealing with the child who's neurodiverse, but giving skills to the other students to include other children in the classroom.
Right. So I'm a coach for it, and I have it going on in the classroom right now. And she was doing brain breaks before, Now she knows more of the purpose for them, but not only that, she is doing what we're saying. I've showed her to observe the child when you can see that they're tapping, when you can see that they're starting to stutter, when you can see that slow processing speed is happening and you're having to repeat directions or repeat things, that stop there. I said, it might be one-on-one with that child, it might be with a small group, it may be in the whole group, because you've created a community where one person's feeling unsafe. We're going to work it out. We're all going to feel safe. And so then they stop feeling ashamed for having it happen, because it's just part of their culture that they stop and they do breathing exercises and talk about, like I said, the emotion behind what they're feeling.
Which is...
So she said that she's been in school for 4 days and she's already seeing a different culture in her classroom, because they can pick up when another child is not feeling safe and shutting down, and they're seeing how's the teacher interacting with that child at that time. If they're ignoring them, they're not being asked probably questions, and if they're not being asked questions, then I can get out of this too. So, but when she's addressing it as she's seeing it, and they're all doing it along with her, voluntarily, that is. They're doing it along with her, which they will do it, because, there's fun activities to do for calm. I meant to tell you, you can Pinterest any teacher can Pinterest calming activities.
Perfect. Yes.
So that's a quick go-to of where to find the calm activities. And you can put up things in the classroom about calm. And about anger and shame, and replace with strength and empathy, what it is, and do social stories with it too. You can use non-names. Tell, well, when you start to feel shut down, that's probably going to be you're feeling sad and lonely and upset. So let's say that's shame, and what do? We go to peon. So.
Because, what I remember is Martin Bloomfield, when he talked on our show, saying, Martin failed his way through school. What are we telling the other students when it's okay to isolate a child in the classroom? And he was... more isolated. I said the teacher doesn't ask them questions or address the child, and they get out of it. But when you're feeling shame, that's what you want. You want to crawl inside yourself, and you're ruminating on negative thoughts. But, like I said, if you talk about affirmations, as soon as you're aware of that negative thought, you stop it with a positive one of I am strength. There's another one. I just brought it out in my head right there. And what I'm hearing from you is that you are creating a classroom of empathy and understanding through creating calm in the classroom, and acknowledging that, not everyone's going to be learning at the same rate, but there are things that we can all do to share the experience of the classroom being positive.
I think we also can't ignore, on the other side of this, are the teachers caught up in this system. Because, the kids are feeling anxious and those types of feelings, but so are the teachers, because there's so much being asked of them. And as Lois said, we put such a value on grades, and the teachers are feeling this. They don't have time to be also managing feelings, because they don't have time to do anything. It's all about the grades, and they got rid of a gym class in a lot of different places, because they've got to hammer these skills, and the whole system needs like an overhaul. And maybe COVID's going to be the thing that helps. Maybe everybody's feeling stressed to the point now that they're going to take this more seriously and slow down and reevaluate.
A lot of it, I guess it was the early 90s where conscious and positive discipline came out. So now we're taking the SEL component a lot further within the last 3 years. So it's really, even right before COVID, I've seen for teachers, but I don't see them attending those classes that much. But the ones that are doing it, their classroom, the kids are happier learning. Being calm makes for happier learning. And being a happy learner, you can learn anything. You can use those strengths along with what I said. So the other teachers modeling. So over the last 3 years, I think we are getting a little bit better.
Yeah.
But it brought me to the point to tell you when the teachers are anxious, they're practicing calm with the kids so much that they start to see their heart rate go down. And their inner thoughts are like, my principal's going to come in. She's going to be expecting me to do well. All those negative thoughts about what's they're being put onto them will start to dissipate, because that's what it does. You're rewiring your brain for positive thinking.
Yes.
And so once those are used more, then they'll start to occur more in their life, and they'll feel less pressure. So speaking of which, where we are using my Albert in the classroom, the teacher doesn't have lesson plans that are going to be pushing it. She's got my Albert system outline for scope and sequence. That's what's there, and the checklist. But what it is she's doing reflective meditation and journaling on how did her day go. What should I do? What did I feel? What should be different? And then the two other questions that's going to be mostly telling her is that if it didn't go well in my reflective journal, there's something that needs to be happened right away. Yeah. Because writing that journal out is getting her not in a fearful state of my principal's going to be reading this lesson plan. It's her getting in touch with her subconscious and her feelings towards how did that day go and what could her difference be tomorrow. So it's really getting her in touch with herself too. Yes. So we know it all trickles down from the higher level. So the children are as good as she is, how she's doing in her mental state. And then how she's doing is based on her principal, and then so on and so forth. So we get these higher up people to start to calm, get in touch with how they're feeling and journaling, then they would, it all trickle down to be better for the student. And that's the goal, is for the student.
To the students. I have Google's telling me we've got 7 minutes left, so I don't want to rush it at the end. But I do want to say, where can we find you, Tricia? Where can people find you?
My website is www.myelbert.com.
Perfect.
myelbert.com.
And you're on LinkedIn and Facebook and Twitter?
Yep. And all the above. Instagram.
Perfect. And we've got your links in the show notes or in the description. Lisa, where can we find you? And I've got a question from Zena before we go to...
I'm mostly on Facebook. I have a LinkedIn thing, but I'm not on there. I will be someday soon. And on YouTube with Lois on Monday afternoon.
Perfect. And I am here with on loisletchford.com and Twitter and Facebook, mostly on LinkedIn. Zena has a question for us, so I wonder if we can answer it in 2 minutes. What do you think about teachers doing these calming activities on scale, like during the regular school day or end of day calming activity? That's the goal, isn't it?
Our brain only takes in 4 to 5 new pieces of information at one time. So that averages about 15 minutes. So you should do every 15 minutes here and there, so to say, a 3-minute calm or brain balance activity to get their mind re-going and reset for new information. So if one child can go longer, they don't have to participate. But for average, you'll see about 15 minutes.
Yeah. So the calming...
So you'll see better learning within, say, taking those breaks every 15 minutes.
And calming the body down too, to lower the heart rate, relax the muscles.
Yeah, and so it's not just for the kids that are feeling hyperactive, those hypersensitive students. It's also for the ones that are hypoactive and the hyposensitivity, because they have to reawaken and realign. So they're not in shutdown. So what the teacher can see mostly is what that they can physically see in front of them. The child getting hyper and things like that. But what about the child who's de-escalate that needs to be escalated.
Yes.
It's the same thing. And if the child is overloaded, what about the child that's underloaded? You know,
and opting out.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, Tricia. Thank you for joining us. We're going to close now because I'm going to be shut out of this and I don't want to get shut off. So please smash the like button. Hit the subscribe button with gusto, I'm told. The bell for notifications. And share this channel with everyone so we can grow it. And I have to thank my son Isaac and his buddy Chris for their technical support, because if they weren't here, I could not put this on the way it happens. So Tricia,
thank you, Isaac.
Thank
you, Chris.
Thank you for coming and sharing this. You had so many strategies that can be used. Relax, calm down.
Yes,
physical.
Calm is key.
And your
Calm is key.
P,
P, prayer, Y, yoga, A, affirmation, M, meditation. And there's so many different kinds.
Yes.
There really are. You can Google any of them.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Or Pinterest them.
Pinterest them. I don't even say that correctly.
I like Pinterest too. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much.
Great. Thank you, Tricia.
And
you're so welcome, Lisa.
And this is the format it'll be from now on. We've only got 45 minutes, so we have to stick to that or we get cut off.
That's right. I'll see you guys. Bye.
Thank you, Tricia.
Bye.
Thank you, Lisa.
I don't know why. Tough one, I'll look into that.
What's that?